I can assure you, every one of you, that there is no place on earth where these criminals will hide. The outrage and anguish you all feel from reading this audit report is not only righteous, but also one that I personally feel. And now that the evidence related to the $6.2 billion is before us, I'm taking action. As I speak, over a dozen individuals suspected of committing the crimes exposed by this audit report have just been arrested by the Malay Police Service. So I want all of the thieves hiding in the civil service to mark my words. If the finger of evidence points to you as one of the thieves that stole COVID money for saving lives while hundreds of our people were dying of COVID, you are going to prison. On top of that, we will use the relevant laws to ensure that you pay back what you stole. Mubwezi, I have directed the Secretary to the President Cabinet, Mr. Zanga Chikosi, to interdict without pay those public officers on whose direct watch the financial mismanagement occurred. As for the Minister of Labor, who was named by the audit report as having spent COVID funds amounting to $613,000 on his allowances for a foreign trip, I have dropped him from my cabinet accordingly. Even though the minister has since returned the money, his usage of the funds means that the money was unavailable for its intended purpose when it was needed most. And I cannot have in my cabinet any individuals who either spend money budgeted for one thing on something else or do not ask tough questions to ensure that the money they are spending on something was budgeted for that purpose. As far as I'm concerned, anyone who steals or wastes public funds is a traitor to this country. I pray that God's curse will rest on anyone who steals even one kwacha of the public funds that God has entrusted us to use in serving Malay. Over a dozen individuals suspected of committing the crimes exposed by this audit report have just been arrested by the Malay Police Service. So I want all of the thieves hiding in the civil service to mark my words. If the finger of evidence points to you as one of the thieves that stole COVID money for saving lives while hundreds of our people were dying of COVID, you are going to prison. On top of that, we will use the relevant laws to ensure that you pay back what you stole. Mubwezi, I have directed the Secretary to the President Cabinet, Mr. Zanga Chikosi, to interdict without pay those public officers on whose direct watch the financial mismanagement occurred. As for the Minister of Labor, who was named by the audit report as having spent COVID funds amounting to $613,000 on his allowances for a foreign trip, I have dropped him from my cabinet accordingly. Even though the minister has since returned the money, his usage of the funds means that the money was unavailable for its intended purpose when it was needed most. And I cannot have in my cabinet any individuals who either spend money budgeted for one thing on something else or do not ask tough questions to ensure that the money they are spending on something was budgeted for that purpose. As far as I'm concerned, Anyone who steals or wastes public funds is a traitor to this country. I pray that God's curse will rest on anyone who steals even one kwacha of the public.
All right, a very good afternoon to you. We're still on Good Afternoon Ghana, and just gone by is the press conference addressed by the National Communications Officer of the NDC, Sami Jemfi, over what the party thinks is a criminal act carried out by government officials as far as the COVID-19 funds are concerned. We also earlier on had revelations by the Auditor General, or the report reviewed a few, misappropriation of the funds. Well, it's yet to be investigated. In fact, yet to be received by a committee in Parliament. We have been joined via Zoom by Akwesi Kunedu, who is Member of Parliament for Menchia North Constituency. He's also a member on the Health Committee in Parliament to help us understand how far we have gone as far as the investigation on COVID-19 funds are concerned. Honourable Member, thank you so much for your time. Within a very short period you have joined us. We're grateful for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Annie, and good afternoon to you and your cherished listeners and viewers.
Right, good afternoon. Now, first, let me find out from you. Before Parliament went on recess, there had been several calls on Parliament to allow for a probe into the management of COVID-19 funds. It had been until or before the Auditor General actually brought out his report. Give me or take us through the journey, how the majority side has handled these calls.
Thank you very much, Annie, once again. Yes, there have been several calls as to investigations into how COVID funds were being managed or utilized during the period between 2019 to 2022 or 2020. So during the last sitting of Parliament, we had a call to have two committees of the Speaker set up, two joint committees on with health and the Finance Committee, so that at least we can do some interrogation as to how these monies were spent. Yes, these committees were set up, subcommittees of these committees were set up. One was to do fact finding, the other was to do verification of these supposedly spent monies for us to be able to come to a conclusion and draw everybody along the process of accountability on these funds that were being utilized by the government through its agencies, ministries, and departments. Mm-hmm. So that is where we left it off. But whilst we were leaving, there were also calls by
I'm sorry, before you go on,
civil societies.
Permit me to indulge you. The fact-finding committee is chaired by who?
The fact-finding committee is a joint committee that was chaired by the Finance Committee chairman and the Health Committee chairman. That will be Honourable Akpo-Forson and the Health Committee, Honourable Ayu. Those were the two individuals it was a joint committee, so those two chairmen and those two committees were chairing, yes.
Okay, how about the verification?
No, those were subcommittees of the main committee that was being set up, because we had only one committee, that is the Joint Committee of Health and Finance, to be able to interrogate those two, because the funds would obviously come to the Ministry of Finance, and health, because it was a health issue, health played a major role in all of these things. So it was one committee, but however, to be able to dissect and interrogate the matters well, that was why there were those two subcommittees, because there were a lot of documentations associated with the COVID period, the COVID expenditures and the rest that needed interrogation, drill down to be able to establish those things very well. So that is why we had those two other committees. But however, we done some work and we needed to meet as a joint committee to be able to finalize all of these and send our report back to the Speaker, who referred this matter to us. But however, just as we are about getting back to Parliament on Tuesday, we also heard of the Auditor General's inquest or review of all the things that happened between the period of 2019 and 2022 that has been released. We are yet to take custody of that, because we are yet to resume for the Speaker to have that document referred to any committee, which probably will be the Public Accounts Committee and probably maybe a joint committee to interrogate. So that is where we are now. We are yet to find a finality as to all of these things. But however, Annie, I've been listening to the interview that the press conference addressed by the communications director of the NDC about raising some of these findings that the Auditor General has found in his report. And I would want to say two things. I like the first introduction that you said. You said all of these allegations are yet to be investigated to either see whether these matters really at the time that happened are infractions that we can continuously be talking about as infractions. And secondly, also, I mean, some of these things that we are all talking about, we must put them in perspective. And we are talking about a period of 2019 and 2020, and we are in 2023 trying to analyze the things that happened then. I mean, in 2019 and 2020, we must all concede that some things will probably be done in a way that would not normally be done when we are in normal times. And it doesn't mean that those things that were done, because they may have gone contrary, and you know that in as much as the Auditor General does his work, it does those works in conformity with rules, regulations, and the rest, regardless of the fact that even if the things were done and done in accordance and did not meet certain specified documentations, they find that as an infraction. It doesn't mean that actually they were lost and spent monies that we cannot account for. So once we are trying to analyze all of these, and I want to take two or three so that at least we can put those in perspective. A matter of us having our balance with after AVAT, that is the African vaccine, about 80 million still with UNICEF for us to have our vaccines that we've not yet had. I mean, seriously, even in terms of people or traders who fund farmers who cultivate, say, tomatoes and the rest, at times do advance payments to them. And I mean, we are in a period where we could not even have had vaccines because all the major players in the health sector or global vaccine sector were producing for their countries. And if you needed, you could not have told them that you ought to come to Ghana with your vaccines and bring them to us as a finished product before we pay. We probably needed, therefore, to make certain advances to them. We are in 2023 now. And if we are probably not going to need all the vaccines that we probably may have paid for or ordered, we are just in the business of going for a refund. And I know, even reading the document, the Auditor General's document, there have been moves and several discussions towards recovery of all of these amounts that have been spent. I heard my brother Sami Jemfi talking about the variation in terms.
Yeah, we're having a discussion on the COVID-19 funds and its management, and we're having a chat with the Honourable Member of Menchia North Constituency, Honourable Kunedu, who is also a member on the Health Committee. He's joining us via Zoom, and I think the link is a little challenging, but let's see if the producers will work around it to restore the situation. Earlier on, the NDC has held a press conference, detailing why they think that government has mismanaged and carried out some criminal activities. Honorable Kunedu, I think I have you back.
Oh, sure, yes.
Right, sure. Please continue.
So, yes, probably let me just talk about another issue of where they said there was a variation in the contract, and probably that meant that. You are looking at the variation that occurred because at the time, the first contract was for a 2-ply fabric plus hard stiff medical grade face mask. But because of how the variant of COVID was changing, there was the need, therefore, for us to turn into a 3-ply fabric for general use. That would probably call for a change in the costing that was being done. And probably at that time, the first costing was done for about 3 Ghana cedis and 2 Ghana cedis. And because you are changing to a 3-ply, you probably would therefore need to move on to a higher price range. That is about 4 to 4.5 Ghana cedis per one. You've already awarded a contract to a person to produce for you 2-ply. The person has the capacity to do a 3-ply. Because of how the variant was changing, you probably then would need a better face mask for protection. You would obviously have to extend the amount of money or increase the amount of money for you to be able to have something that will probably protect people rather than having something that you have paid for and not to protect people. But be that as it may, this is the audit report that has been generated by the Auditor General and his team. We will take custody of that report and we will dissect the report, and we would call for people to come for us to have deliberations on it. produce documents and justify why some of these things have been made. But we should not be in a haste, and we should not be in a haste at all. We all demand accountability, and I'm not here saying that we probably should just share it because these things were done in a period. No, we all demand accountability. But whilst demanding accountability, and we must therefore place ourselves during when these activities occurred, what would have been the best mode for us to have done that time, and what was done at that time, and not sitting down here now trying to just oppose those two things, and that probably will give us a fair understanding as to what really happened and what ought to have happened and what happened and why we need. It will inform us as to what to be done in the coming years whenever some of these incidents probably may come to happen again.
So I mean, I like how you ended that what has happened before will inform us going forward. And in this country, what has happened before is a botched Sputnik V deal, which was led by our health minister. And at the end of the committee's findings, it was clear that the health minister did not do any good to the country, to the extent that there was a censure motion that was put forward in Parliament by the minority, remove the health minister. Other NGO institutions were calling for the removal of the finance minister. There was no clear indication that government was committed to punish wrongdoings as far as COVID-19 management as a whole is concerned. And so in this case, you really will not wait until things get out of hand before we now call on the people to support government as we are in today.
Annie, I would not want to share in the view that you say government would not want to punish people. In the first instance, you said that we are yet to investigate. Annie, the fact that there have been adverse findings against individuals in an audit report does not conclude that those individuals are guilty. And we must understand that. Because that is why this is an audit report, and it's the opinion of the auditors. It is left for us to interrogate that opinion of the auditors against the activities that were done, the documentations of it, juxtapose that with the law and make recommendations to that. Where there are criminal matters that the state would then need to prosecute, the state would have to prosecute that. When recommendations come and there are recommendations for people to be prosecuted, and those individuals are not prosecuted, then we can say probably government is not in line with trying to punish people for the wrongs that they may have done. But this is an audit report. This is a report we are yet to take custody of. This is a report that we are yet to give recommendations on as to the activities and functions that people perform, whether they went along with the laws of the state or not. So we cannot go straight away and say government is not interested in doing that. If you talk about the Sputnik V, we all know that yes, some processes at that time did not go wrong, but the state never lost any money in terms of that. And it was done with a good purpose at that time, and we are talking about 2019, for us to be able to have vaccines to help protect lives, so that we as a people will not necessarily fall short of how the spread of COVID was going. And we saw in many...
Not to really interrupt, but let me really interrupt. Did you go through...
Oh, no problem, Annie.
Okay, did you go through with us when the committee set out to investigate the Sputnik V deal? Did you go through with us as a country? I mean, honorable member of the health committee, did you go through the findings of the committee?
And every single thing that happened was...
and can you say... so can you say for a fact that no wrongdoing was done as far as with regards to the health minister?
And that would find its way into the recommendations of the committee. And I don't probably think the recommendations of the committee said that there needed to be a prosecution of the minister, unless you show me that paragraph of that recommendation that says so. Because the most important thing at that time was the amount of money that probably we all felt that we may have lost because the Sputnik V vaccines were not supplied. And the processes that it needed to pass through. Yes, we agree and concede. And even the minister conceded at the committee that there were some processes that he needed to have taken that he did not take because he felt the exigencies of that time and the need for us to have had the vaccines to protect lives and property. He conceded to that. But be that as it may, did the state lose any money? Did it cause any financial loss to the state? Unless you you point to a recommendation or a finding in that committee's report that says so. That will require of us to have sanctioned the minister or prosecuted the minister. With the matter of censorship, it is a matter that flowed out of the minister maybe jumping certain processes or procedures that he may have probably taken that he did not. That caused the minority to move that motion of censorship, which probably is still hanging that the finality has not been brought on those matters. So, Annie, we probably should not hang people dry at the first instance of finding. We probably should also go into why some of these things. We have always said that as the committee on Public Accounts Committee, we probably do not ask the why, because we are only looking at your infractions against what the law states. But when you are
let me read this. One of the institutions that were calling for his removal, that's the health minister's removal, I think was Ghana Integrity Initiative, I'm sure, and. I'm reading just a quote from a report carried out by the news. It says that in a memo to the Speaker of Parliament calling for the vote of censure. Okay, this was the minority censure. The minority said his actions were a direct breach of constitution and law passed by the Honorable House. And then outlining Ajimamenu's failing in the 6-point memo, they said the minister was guilty of perjury, among others, when he misrepresented the ad hoc committee on oath and no payment was made under the agreement to the private office of His Highness Sheikh Ahmed Dalmouk Al Maktoum. Now, the business, based on the business, the Ministry of the Health contacted the institution for. So there were breaches, constitutional breaches, procurement breaches that we're talking about during the committee's findings. Is that what you're calling, or you want to describe as not financial loss to the state?
And you said that was the memo to the Speaker calling for the committee to be set up to investigate that. I was only talking about you reading the recommendations, unless you tell me that is the recommendations of the committee first and foremost, and not to prejudice the motion of censorship, which will probably be moved again in matters of trying to discuss these matters, because we have a day to deliberate on all of these things and argue them out, and you will also have a day to also speak to these matters as in the memo. So at least if that can be shared. But as a matter of fact, I would want to speak to the point that there was no recommendation for criminal proceedings against it that has been shared. That would mean that the president or the state or government would want to shield people from punishment or misuse of public funds during the period of COVID. Not at all. That is not the point. When there are criminal matters to be prosecuted, trust you me that the state or government will take that initiative to do. But we should not hang people dry at the first instance. That is all that I would want to say. These are audit reports. These are the unqualified opinions of the auditors. That is why their words or their work have always not been final. But it counts for us to deliberate, give the people an opportunity. Otherwise, there will not have been any public accounts hearing on some of these matters, because there is always an opportunity for people to come speak to the matters or findings against them when they fall short of the reasons, or to justify why these things were done under the law or under the circumstances that they were done. That is where recommendations will be made against them for prosecution or otherwise, refunds, surcharges, and the rest, which are all part of the laws that we have. So I mean, we should probably be looking at all those ones. Now we have this report. It's a 119-page document that we do have. I mean, we are interrogating everything. We are reading from page to page and making sure that upon referral to us, either the Public Accounts or the Health Committee or a joint committee to do interrogation of this, every single person mentioned in thereof would have a day to come and justify why, present documentations to buttresses or a point. When findings are made, trust you, recommendations will be made. Because I mean, we need to protect every single penny that we have under any circumstances. So it is paramount to us as the watchdog keepers or the gatekeepers and the pest keepers of the state to make sure that whatever funds we allocate as a house, whatever funds we allocate as the legislators and the holders of the public purse, proper accountability is done. And whoever is giving custody of these funds for implementation of certain programs, go under the law with due diligence and care and prudence, does that. That is what we are going to look at. So I would urge everybody, once we have it, we should all follow the proceedings that would occur thereof, so that where there is the need, where people also have other information, they can also furnish us with that, so that when people come before the committee, we probably can lay those informations to them, for them to speak to them. When it's not satisfactory, trust you us, our recommendations will bear those unsatisfactory remarks and recommendations that the ordinary Ghanaian and every single person in this state would know, and also serve as an example for others who will be given custody of public funds to utilize them prudently.
So we have, let me just give you a brief. About 5 or 6 days ago, the Public Relations Unit of the Finance Ministry puts a release on its website, and it admitted that the audit report confirms the total resources mobilized for the COVID-19 response over a period of March 2020 to June 2022 at 21 billion 844 million 189,185.24. That's the total mobilization. Now, it also indicated on page 7, that's of the audit report, that's paragraph 18 of the report, that funds mobilized were to address the following two key interventions. That's the finance direct COVID-19 intervention expenditure and support the funding gap in the budget, which was occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic and its effect on revenue mobilization. And I'm reading this for the purpose of information to the public. Now, the ministry said it welcomes the Auditor General's report and wishes to assure the public that steps are being taken to address all issues. The following interventions are currently being pursued by the ministry. And also, meetings are being organized to engage with the implementation agencies to evaluate actions taken by implement the audit recommendations in the audit report. Is the health committee part of the agencies that are meeting with the finance committee? Let's hope that when you resume work, you are going to immediately start work on this findings report that's been put out by the Auditor General. That's upon receiving the report.
Yes, we can assure you that. And I like the press release that you read. It tells you that they aren't sitting down. They are making sure that they address the issues as raised by the auditor. And so everybody should be rest assured. And yes, I wouldn't want to say, people would have that pessimistic feeling that, we've heard that before, we've heard these assurances before. Yes, we've heard it before. That is why it informs us. We always have to change the mode of doing things for the best. So trust you me, we will take custody of it when it's referred to us. Once it's not referred, yes, we need to put our house in order, read them, find information, other information that will buttress our point to satisfy our curiosity or otherwise. And when official is referred to us, I would not want to sit here and say on authority that whether it will be a public hearing or not. But we would have hearing that people will be rest assured that every person mentioned in the ROC or agency would come and justify why things were done for everybody where we are not satisfied. I have said there will be the recommendations that we will pass.
We just hope that we're going to get a good report on that, because there's been too many COVID funds infractions, allegations that government has decided, maybe for want of a better expression, respond to it. And so, on hindsight, you don't know what to expect in the near future. But for this Auditor General's report, we're not sure the government was ever going to respond to some of these allegations that were coming up as far as COVID funds management were concerned.
And even the Auditor General's report is a step towards government trying to be transparent about some of these things. You must agree to that. And the response from the Ministry of Finance also shows they are willing and they are engaging. So it is not a matter that government
that's not entirely factual, because the Auditor General has been the Auditor General for ages, even before the coming in of this government. It has to do its work according to law. So government cannot take the glory of the work done by the Auditor General at this point in time.
And nobody is taking the glory of what the Auditor General has done. But I'm only telling you, it is part of the processes of transparency. The Auditor General never said he was restricted in doing any job that he needed to do about these COVID funds. And these are purely, why haven't we have 2019 Auditor General's report for all ministries, departments, and agencies that have captured COVID-19 funds to them? We have 2020 report they've done that. We have 2021 accounts, they've done that. They are in line doing the 2022 report. So obviously COVID-19 has always been part of the mainstream accounting processes that the Auditor General has done from 2019. So having this special report on COVID-19 is an additional boost that even government would want us to have. Separate that from all the accounts and have them in bulk. So when I say that is one way of government trying to also let us all have transparency in that, so that it's not consumed within the general accounting processes that we've had all these years. It's one of the ways. So I'm not trying to say, but we must also say that it's a complementary approach towards trying to have transparency about how COVID funds were used, either directly or indirectly.
So I mean, I'll leave you with this. We played a video of the Malarian president, Lazarus Chakwera, and he made certain commitments to his people. I'm sure you must have seen that video. There was a point that interests me where he said that if COVID funds were put to some use, which was not meant for what it's actually supposed to be used for, then you are going to be punished for that. As a country, are we going to consider something of that nature, where when we were looking for the money, we couldn't get it because someone was using it for something else?
And you put me and equate me to the Malarian president, and I'm not a president yet, but I'm assuring you, as the people's guardian, given the mandate to supervise the use of public funds and to seek accountability on behalf of every single Ghanaian in this country, and myself included, so that these funds will go directly into programs that will benefit every single Ghanaian to bring about. Let me assure you that we are going to do our job diligently and forcefully, so that it will be fair to every single person, and accountability and probity will be seen in the doing of our business, such that it will also serve as an example for other people who will be given state funds or resources to manage, to prudently manage that. That assurance I can give.
Akwesi Kunedu, Member of Parliament for Menchia North constituency, I'm grateful for your time. We'll definitely get back to you when you resume your work on the Health Committee. Let's see how far you go with this. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me also, Annie.
Right, and he is a member of the Health Committee in Parliament. This is how far that committee has gone as far as their findings or their work on COVID-19 funds are concerned. But they're yet to receive, the committee is yet to receive the reports from the Auditor General. So we will wait and also hear from them. Let's see on the side of Parliament what they are going to do. Let's take a breather now. When we come back, we'll touch base with the NDC and see what they're going to do beyond this press conference.
Standing success story. Thank you very much. In Zimbabwe, we have adopted basic philosophy, which is village philosophy. One, we say a country must be ruled by the people of that country. Two, a country must be developed by the people of that country. Three, a country must eat what it kills. That is village wisdom. Now, in Zimbabwe, we have problems of food insecurity, and we said, how much food do we want per year to feed our country? We know we need about 2 million metric tons of grain. So we say, because there is climate change, how many hectares of land can we put under irrigation to produce the 2 million plus metric tons to feed the nation? And we determine how much yield does a hectare have. Once you've done that, you now know how many hectares you must put under irrigation to achieve the amount of grain you want to feed your nation in spite of climate change. That we have done, and we are now food secure. Secondly, we have been importing our wheat from Ukraine, our fertilizer from Russia. Now that side is problematic. So we decided to say we need about 240,000 metric tons of wheat. So how many hectares do we want under irrigation to grow wheat? And we calculated and put that number of hectares under wheat. We are now wheat sufficient. And we believe that next season we should be able to export wheat. We got the fertilizer which we are getting from Russia. We decided to find out what makes fertilizer. We discovered that because of the colonial mentality, we thought fertilizer was produced elsewhere. We have the materials in the country, and 3-4 months ago we've begun.
I can assure you, every one of you, that there is no place on earth where these criminals will hide. The outrage and anguish you all feel from reading this audit report is not only righteous, but also one that I personally feel. And now that the evidence related to the $6.2 billion is before us, I'm taking action. As I speak, over a dozen individuals suspected of committing the crimes exposed by this audit report have just been arrested by the Malawi Police Service. So I want all of the thieves hiding in the civil service to mark my words. If the finger of evidence points to you as one of the thieves that stole COVID money for saving lives while hundreds of our people were dying of COVID, you are going to prison. On top of that, we will use the relevant laws to ensure that you pay back what you stole. Mubwezi, I have directed the Secretary to the President Cabinet, Mr. Zanga Chikosi, to interdict without pay those public officers on whose direct watch the financial mismanagement occurred. As for the Minister of Labor, who was named by the audit report as having spent COVID funds amounting to $613,000 on his allowances for a foreign trip, I have dropped him from my cabinet accordingly. Even though the minister has since returned the money, his usage of the funds means that the money was unavailable for its intended purpose when it was needed most. And I cannot have in my cabinet any individuals who either spend money budgeted for one thing on something else or do not ask tough questions to ensure that the money they are spending on something was budgeted for that purpose. As far as I'm concerned, anyone who steals or wastes public funds is a traitor to this country. I pray that God's curse will rest on anyone who steals even one kwacha of the public funds that God has entrusted us to use in serving Malawi. Over a dozen individuals suspected of committing the crimes exposed by this audit report have just been arrested by the Malawi Police Service. So I want all of the thieves hiding in the civil service to mark my words. If the finger of evidence points to you as one of the thieves that stole COVID money for saving lives while hundreds of our people were dying of COVID, you are going to prison. On top of that, we will use the relevant laws to ensure that you pay back what you stole. Mubwezi, I have directed the Secretary to the President Cabinet, Mr. Zanga Chikosi, to interdict without pay those public officers on whose direct watch the financial mismanagement occurred. As for the Minister of Labor, who was named by the audit report as having spent COVID funds amounting to $613,000 on his allowances for a foreign trip, I have dropped him from my cabinet accordingly. Even though the minister has since returned the money, his usage of the funds means that the money was unavailable for its intended purpose when it was needed most.
Let's go into the phone lines and speak with Malik Basintale, who is the First Deputy Communications Officer for the NDC. Malik, thank you for your time. You're welcome to Good Afternoon.
Thank you.
Hello?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, the press conference is over. What's the next move for the NDC? I earlier on spoke with a member of the Health Committee, Akwesi Kunedu, to find out what it has done so far since the calls of investigating the management of COVID-19 funds started. He has also indicated to me that the audit report has not been tendered in or has not been given to the Health Committee yet. And so when Parliament resumes, it definitely will be one of the areas they will work on. What will be the next move of the NDC after this press conference?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to your viewers. We are making various demands. I mean, in the interest of the Ghanaian people, we feel that the utilization of our COVID-19 funds needs to be accounted for transparently. And one of the recommendations we are making, and in fact we will call it a demand, is that the investigation must be made live on TV for everyone to participate or to witness or to watch how our COVID-19 funds were utilized. If you look at the breakdown of the Auditor General's report, I mean, there are clear indications that what they claimed to use the 11 billion for was actually mismanaged. And you go directly into the figures where you find out that even food that was served during the COVID-19 era was done without any receipt or any, recourse to the gift system. And it's quite worrying that you have huge sums of money to a tune of 50 million, to a tune of 500 million, even being used to print, items not being transparently done. And there's a point where, amounts of monies were used to even print, sensitization brochures for senior high school students without any evidence, as stated in the Auditor General's report. And free water that was given and monies that were paid to so-called private entities that supplied these free waters. There was not a single receipt to indicate or to show that any amount of money was paid to anybody who supplied water, for the government during COVID-19. And so these are very worrying things that, we think that must be properly accounted for. And it must be done in broad daylight. It must be done on live television for those who mismanaged this expenditure to account for it. Over 200,000 Ghana cedis was paid to people at the information ministry for no job done. Because clearly during COVID-19, some of you media persons, dedicated your time, you risked your lives, you gave the government of the day free airtime just because you felt that we were in crisis and the government was choking. You thought it wise to allow for sensitization, to be done on your various platforms at a free rate. Little did you know that somebody somewhere was drawing a budget and somebody somewhere was being paid and somebody somewhere was using your names to make huge sums of money. Over a tune of over 12 million Ghana cedis was supposed to cater for you. It's been indicated that indeed you people were giving that money. But today, some revelations even at the press conference, some testimonies by some media persons indicated that not even a penny, not even a peso was given to any of their media houses. And so these are the things we find worrying. So in the interest of the people of this country, we feel that, they must account for all these monies that was mismanaged. They must account for how they were able to raise a tune of 52 million out of our COVID-19 funds to give to their parliamentary candidates. And then I mean, a tape was played where the former vice chairperson for the MPP in the Northern Region, Madam Felicia Tete, who doubled at the time as the parliamentary candidate for Sanarigu, the MPP's parliamentary candidate, was given 100,000, a constituency chairman given 200,000, and the entire constituency given another 100,000, a total of over 400,000 Ghana cedis. I mean, in the old currency, 40 billion was given to just one constituency for election-related matters. And so these are things that we feel that, yes, they must be accounting for. If you look at the insurances, I mean, there was a clear case of conflict of interest where, I mean, 30% was awarded to Enterprise Insurance, where Mr. Ken Ofurata's wife, Angela Ofurata, sits on the board and take decision. A clear case of conflict of interest. And so we find it worrying that you sit down and then the 30% of monies that was accrued, I mean, during the COVID-19 era, so 30% of 21 billion was given to Enterprise Insurance to insure people with no receipts. And in some cases, they say they had, I mean, honor receipts or honor certificates, which meant that after all this utilization of these resources, there was no official receipt. Somebody somewhere took a pen and paper and indicated on it, look, we have bought food for 300 people, pay us this so and so amount, pay us 50 million. Then they take that receipt to the finance ministry, and then payment is issued. I mean, this is so abysmal.
So
the
Malik,
people of this country deserve better.
Right. So let me indulge you for a moment. I mean, there are some of the phrases and words you used in the press conference which show that you had already drew your judgment. But remember that this is an audit report available for responsible institutions to take it up for various investigations. Parliament will go their way, and then maybe other institutions will also take it up. You use phrases like conflict of interest. It has not been established yet. I think I heard Sami Jemfi use the word stealing, showing clearly that you already, this is not premature ejaculation. Won't you just give room for investigation to happen first before we all know where we are as a country?
There is no contention that a contract was awarded to Enterprise Insurance. That is not in contention. The fact has been established that indeed a contract was awarded to Enterprise Insurance. The fact has been established that 30% of the amount was paid and given to Enterprise Insurance. That is not in contention. In the matter of Enterprise Insurance, what is in contention is that, one, they haven't been able to show us a single person who was insured under COVID-19, because there was a special life insurance for 10,000 frontline workers. And the Auditor General is saying that when he asked them to account for the 10,000 workers, not even a single soul was accounted for. Probably all the 10,000 people that were insured probably had perished. But even if they had perished, you could have given a certificate of their deaths, or death certificates, or probably how you insured them before they died. The Auditor General is also saying that 10 million Ghana cedis was allocated to this particular purpose, and not a single receipt has been credited. If your life is insured, in fact, even cars that are insured have certificates of insurance, and you're able to prove that this is the certificate, this is how I insured my car, this is the receipt of payment. You know it and I know it. So how come a whole human being will be insured and not even a single certificate was given to the Auditor General? So the issue of conflict of interest is not in contention. The fact has been established that the contract was awarded to Enterprise Insurance. It is also a fact that Angela Ofurata, who is the wife, the bedmate of Mr. Ken Ofurata, sits on the board of Enterprise Insurance. And in fact, every living soul in this country knows who Enterprise Insurance belongs to. And so once that contract was awarded to Enterprise Insurance, that fact is not supposed to be investigated. It is prima facie. It is a fact that there's an iota of conflict of interest there, and then it goes against our laws in this country. The second point has to do with how a Toyota Hiace ambulances were supposed to be procured. That is not in contention too. The Auditor General has stated emphatically that not a single Toyota Hiace bus was shown to them. 26 that were procured. The government of the day spent over $4 million in it. They were unable to account for them. And so that is not also in contention, because the Auditor General was with you for over 1 week. And he said, look, show me the ambulances you procured. You've not been able to show. He has indicated in his report that you took $4 million to go and procure ambulances. Not a single one has been shown here. So where are the ambulances? That is also not in contention. And so this is not a matter of investigation. This is a matter of prosecution. Look, if you go to, how do you call it, President Lazarus sacked his Minister for Labor, okay, for an amount of $800 that was paid to himself as allowances on a trip to South Africa. $800, Annie.
Yes, but Malik, prosecution cannot take place directly from the office of the Auditor General. The Auditor General has the power to surcharge, yes, that is if it establishes. But in terms of prosecuting, it cannot come straight from the office of the Auditor General.
Who dismisses the finance minister? It's not the president.
So that should be left to the table of the office of the president.
Those are some of the demands we are making. We are requesting the chief clearing agent not to clear this particular matter. That is all we are asking for. We haven't asked the Auditor General to sack anyone. He doesn't have that locus. Those with that such locus and such balls is the man in charge, the commander-in-chief, the president of the republic. And so we are asking him to take charge. I mean, if your colleague president, your colleague Malawian president was able to sack his labor minister and 19 other workers for mismanagement of just $800. $800 in Ghana cedis is how much? Something, I mean, just a little over 10,000 Ghana cedis. $800. He was able to sack his people. Then we have a mismanaged amount of over 9 billion. And the president is not taking action. Nobody seems to be concerned about this particular matter. It was similar investigation that was done in Malawi. And then it unraveled the fact that a labor minister had paid this amount of allowances to himself. In this same report, the information minister is alleged to have paid 12 million to his workers. That is not in contention. It's a fact that monies were utilized for that. Because you see, under auditing, the ministry itself avails itself to answer some questions. And in the questioning and answering section, it came to the notice of the Auditor General that these were the infractions that were committed in there. And so those things are not in contention. So if we had a president who indeed cared for lives in this country, today there are ministers that would have left their offices this very afternoon. Someone like the finance minister, he should have been somewhere in his village, I mean, writing his handing over notes. Somebody like the information minister, Kojo Ponkroma, for mismanaging over 12 million that was allocated to him, he should have resigned by now. Someone like the CEO of the National Buffer Stock, Mr. Hanan, he should have been resigning by now. Someone like the health minister, who boldly even said he wasn't thinking properly before procuring, some COVID-19 drugs, should have been off the hook by now. So these are the demands we are making. We are appealing that, first of all, the president needs to take action. He needs to allow some people go home for proper investigations to be conducted. And then secondly, after you sack a minister does not mean he shouldn't be investigated. So after these people are sacked, then prosecution can take place. You start prosecuting them, and then you allow everybody to follow precedents so that at least people will not say that they've been witch hunted. People will sit down and understand how over 11 billion was mismanaged. Because our major concern in this particular matter is that today, the people of this country are suffering because President Akufo-Addo claims the government ran into a ditch as a result of COVID-19 and the Russian-Ukraine war. In fact, they attributed more to COVID-19 than even the Russian-Ukraine war. And then they have attempted painting the picture that the government did so well during COVID-19 to salvage the situation with very scarce resources. But today, everybody is getting to understand that we had more than enough, and COVID-19 was indeed a bonanza. But for the mismanagement of the funds we received during COVID-19, this government would have even, improved upon our gross reserves, because there would have been a huge surplus to be put into our gross reserves for us to use in budgetary support services. And so our major concern is that we want that narrative to stop. We want them to stop attributing to the faults in this country. Today, we are at a point where bond payers are going to have their fingers dipped into their monies as a result of the fact that the president claims that during COVID-19 we didn't have much, and so the government had to overspend from their own budget, which is false. So we are only giving a breakdown of what the 10 million or 11 billion was used for. And then it is clear now that they had more than enough. They decided to mismanage it. They decided to chop it. There was enough free in there. There were enough, acts of corruption in there. And then we are appealing to the relevant authorities to take these things up. And then in the meantime, the president should, as usual, not appear or not put on his clearing agent jacket. He should, as usual, not act as a clearing agent. He should be bold enough to allow people who have been found culpable in these acts to at least, even if it will be for the meantime, they should resign, they should go home and allow for proper investigations to be conducted.
Sputnik V investigations, and at some point, minority was calling for the removal of the health minister after the findings of the committee. That was unsuccessful. At this point in time that you have a new minority leadership, is it going to be able to push for what you're asking for? And answer this in in 30 seconds, please.
The reason for the health minister still being at post was not a challenge from the minority in parliament. It was a challenge because we have a clearing agent as president. And so changing our minority leadership is not going to mean that this time things are really going to be different in there. For things to be different in this matter, we need to plead with Alhaji Bawumia and Mr. Akufo-Addo to stop clearing corrupt individuals, to allow for proper investigations, to be conducted in this particular matter. And so our parliamentary leadership will continue to do well in exposing the rot in this particular matter. But for proper change to be effected in this particular situation, President Akufo-Addo and Alhaji Bawumia need to stop protecting corrupt individuals and allow for proper investigations into the matter.
Right. Malik Basantale, thank you for your time. He's First Deputy Communications Officer for the NDC. And also earlier on, we spoke with the Akwesi Kunedu, who is Member of Parliament for Menchia North Constituency and also a member on the Health Committee. We were unable to speak with Kwame Sapong Seidu, who is a pharmacist and a fellow at CDD Ghana. But we'll continue the discussion considering how this investigation goes after the Auditor General's revelations about COVID-19 funds. My name is Ania Fampo. Thanks for watching. Good afternoon.